Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. So tonight I'm pressed a little bit for time for dinner, and I decided to make a quick quiche, and I used to call it a quickie, so I guess it's fitting. So here are the eggs I am going to be making the quiche with, and we have 3 dozen because we just, on Sunday, came back from our meetup from the farmer's market, so we have a pretty good supply of eggs right now. So we're gonna make a couple of onions that are sprouting that need to be used up fairly quickly. And I also went out in the garden, picked some fresh spinach. I'm just gonna rinse it off in the sink here with some water. And I did put a little bit of salt in here just in case anything is in here and it will come off. I'm going to rinse that off and we're going to get to cooking this quiche. Okay, so we like our quiches with a crust. Some people make them without a crust. I make mine with a crust. And it calls for 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. That's a cup. And do I have enough or do I need to get some more? Probably need to get some more. That's 1.5 cups or thereabouts. I'll put a little bit more. I'm empty, so I need to refill this. So the recipe I'm using, I'll put it in the description box below. It actually calls for 2 teaspoons of sugar. And when I make something, well, when I make this crust for a savory dish, I usually cut that in half or leave it out altogether. You can do you. But I did put a little bit in it, not even a full teaspoon. So I definitely didn't do all of it, but definitely not a full 2 teaspoons. So I did do a little bit. So I put in the salt. It calls for 1 to 2 teaspoons, and I usually just do 2 teaspoons. And then 1/2 cup of cold water. And then, no, I'm sorry, 1/2 cup of cold butter, and then 2 tablespoons of cold milk. So I'm gonna get that. Okay, I'm just gonna take my pastry cutter and incorporate those dry ingredients. And then I'm gonna put my milk in. And then I'm gonna cut in my butter. That's my milk going in. And I've seen people do this a whole lot of different ways. They'll put this in last, they'll put it in, whatever. I really, either way, I found it works. So that was my milk. And I'm going to get my butter. Okay, so the recipe calls for 1/2 cup of cold butter. And it's a stick of butter. I'm basically just gonna put in half of it. I did cut it up a little bit. Put in half of it first, mix that in, and then put the other half in. And this is when a pastry cutter comes in really handy. I've used a fork before. It works just as good. If you don't have a pastry cutter, you don't need a pastry cutter. You can do it with a fork. And just cut it in, or you can do it with your hands. Now, with your hands, you have to be kind of fast about it because you don't want the butter to get warm, because it's doesn't come out as flaky as cold butter. So just cutting this in, pretty much cut in, and I'm adding the other half of my stick. Get it all in there and just cut it in. Okay, so this is what it should look like breadcrumbs. If you didn't add your milk before you added your butter, which I shouldn't have, you would add your milk right now. But since I already did, I'm going to use just wash my hands. I'm going to use my hands to bring it together. If it doesn't come together, I'm going to add a little bit more milk. And this will depend on your kitchen as well. So I'm just going to bring it together, and I'll tell you at the end if I added any more milk or not. And I'm just going to bring it together. Usually I would turn it out, but I'm just trying to be quick right now. I was a bit late starting dinner, so I'm going to try and get this done really quickly. Okay, this is what it looks like. It's pretty much coming together. I did add another tablespoon, and I actually added water this time. I didn't add more milk. I added more water. Well, I added water. So it's got 3 tablespoons of liquid in there, 2 tablespoons of milk, and 1 tablespoon of water. And I'm going to wrap this in cellophane and let it rest in the fridge for about a half an hour. So I just want to show you as I put it into the cellophane, and yes, I do reuse my cellophane. It is still a little bit crumbly. I'm not worried about it. Once it goes into the fridge and relaxes, it will become, I don't know how to say it. It's like the flour actually hydrates from the liquids that's in it. That's why I let it rest for at least a half an hour. So yeah, don't worry about it. If it's not, see, it's a little crumbly. By the time I take it out of the fridge, it won't be. So just wrap it up and let it set in the fridge. You can't really see that, but let it sit in the fridge. This is one pie crust, and it will fit about a 10-inch pie crust. That's what it's gonna fit, that 10-inch pie pan. So while my crust is in the fridge resting, I'm going to get my filling started. And this is just some tallow, and I'm gonna add my onions right in once it melts, and get my spinach, and I'm just gonna saute them lightly so they can go into the dish. Okay, so I've got my onions in, sort of simmered down, and I just rough chopped this spinach, and I'm just gonna add it right in there. See if I can do this one-handed with not spilling everything all over the place. I got the rest in there. And I'm just gonna let this wilt down and saute that together. Okay, so there it is. I'm just going to sit it off to the side and let it cool. And then I'm going to move on to rolling out my pastry and blind baking. So I have my pie crust here. This is a 9.5-inch pie crust. And I have my crust out. And I did pull it out probably about 10 minutes ago. And it will still on the dry side. So I actually added about a teaspoon of milk into it to make it more bind together. And I'm going to roll it out. Okay, so put down a little bit of flour. You don't need a whole lot. Rapidly losing light here. Actually, is that better? So we just want to kind of start it, shaping it. And I don't want to put too much flour on it. And we're going to roll it out to the size of my pie dish. And try not to get it all cracky. If that's a word. Okay. So it doesn't have to be perfect. We're gonna meld together the edges anyway. Because I'm rushing, and every time you rush, something happens. Well, for me anyway. So I'm just gonna mold them back together like that. And go around. Okay, so I've got my crust all in, and I'm gonna actually blind bake my crust for about 8 to 10 minutes in a 450-degree oven before I turn it down and add the filling. Now, I'm going to just line it with some parchment paper that obviously I've used for some small pies. And I'm gonna reuse it, yes I am. And these are just beans I use every single time for this purpose. And just spread them out in here. Hopefully it will be enough. And we're gonna bake it off. So I'm gonna blind bake this on 450 degrees for 8 minutes. And then I'm gonna turn it down to 325. You should do about 350. And I'm going to bake it uncovered for another 4 minutes. So the oven's preheated, and I'm going to put it in now. The other thing I'm going to do is just cover it with some foil so the crust doesn't get too brown before we add the filling. So I've got all my ingredients out for my filling, and while my crust is blind baking, I'm going to get that done. Now I'm not sure if I'm going to use 4 eggs or 6 eggs. I probably use all 6 since we've got 3 dozen. Use all 6 of them. Ooh, see what happens? Did you see that? Yeah. This wouldn't be a cooking show if I didn't make a mess. Yeah, that's on the counter, in case you didn't know. Yeah. So I guess I'm going to be using 5 eggs. Okay, let's get this cleaned up. So I have my 5 eggs in there. And a little bit of salt and pepper. I'm gonna put some milk. Okay, to that I'm gonna add the filling that I made of the spinach and onions. Put it right on in there. And then I'm going to add the cheese, and I'm going to save a little bit of cheese for the top as well. Add a little bit of cheese to it. Get that all mixed up. Okay, so I've got all this mixed up. The other thing the recipe called for was a tablespoon of flour. I don't have any flour up here. I have to go downstairs to my basement to get it. So what I'm going to use in replacement for it is some cornstarch. Pretty much the same thing. In this case, it's a thickener. And I'm going to add it right in here, if I can measure it out properly. Add it right in here, and then mix it all up together. It's just a thickener. That's basically what it is. That would be a tablespoon of all-purpose flour. So my crust baked for 8 minutes with the foil on. I took the foil off, and I'm going to bake it for another 4 minutes. My crust has been blind baked, and I've removed the beans, obviously. So now I'm just going to start adding the filling right in. Add it right in. And I'm going to bake this in a 325 degree oven for 30 to 45 minutes, depending on how much eggs you put in. The rest of the cheese on the top, and I'm going to put it in the oven. Here's the quiche done out of the oven. Gotta turn the oven off. I'll let it cool for a few minutes before I serve it out. And I don't know if you noticed, but I didn't put any meat in it because I'm vegan. I don't eat meat. I eat eggs occasionally, like now, and I'll eat cheese occasionally, and I'll eat honey and butter. But any kind of meat, no, I don't eat. So I just fried up some ground pork that I had canned up, and I put some chili spices in that, and then I scooped out some before I put the spices in it, and that's just the regular one. So that's a whole can of ground pork. Yeah, that's what that is, ground pork. And I'll just sprinkle it over whoever wants meat, and whoever doesn't, that's what it will be. So this is what it looks like. And it smells so good, so delicious. So here is the quiche served up on a plate. I put a little bit of green hot sauce on it, homemade green hot sauce. It was really hot. It's actually mellowed out. This was from last year's garden peppers, but it's mellowed out after. I actually had some of it in the freezer, and this is what we're using now, but it was good. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and click that notification bell to be notified when I upload videos. God bless, and remember, stay safe and keep prepping.